Teen Justice for All.
All right, 3.0, approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion. for
Carmel.
the agenda.
I'll second. Deb, second. Any discussion? Okay, if not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, 4.0, public comment. We have none today. 5.0, approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Carmel.
Second.
By you, John?
Yep.
All right, second by John. All right. Any discussion on the consent agenda here? Coaches for everything. All right. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Carries. Okay, communications report, 6.1, Jim Trulock.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, were there any questions about any coaching positions? Our, one thing I wanted to comment on is our tennis numbers are getting pretty high. So we're up in the area of, I don't know, 25 or 26 tennis players this year. And we did have an applicant, you'll see Becky Zimmer is on here, formerly Becky Meyer, graduated from McCray. And she's interested, and Lindsay is going to help work with her this year, and Becky's considering maybe taking the program over next year. So she's going to work in an assistant capacity just to try to learn some of the ins and outs. She's a real good tennis player from McCray, there's no question. She doesn't need help with those kind of things, but like I said, there's a lot of head coaching duties that it's nice to have a mentor for. Did you guys get the State High School League 2-page sheet? Was that added?
Yeah.
That was pretty good news. If you remember a few years ago, they raised their prices just drastically. And they hadn't raised their price, if I remember, somewhere in the area of 12 years. And so they basically went in debt. And then they finally found a way to prorate it. At first, they just were charging all the schools the same, and then there was some pushback because why is a little school like McCurdy getting charged the same as Minnetonka? They came up with a pretty good system, I think. Well, if you saw in this letter, they have 2.25 million in membership dues. So they decided to cut way back this year, and they're going to cut back for the next 2 years. Last year, and I didn't look up what our enrollment is, how the state high school charges us, but I'm going to go with the same number. But they're still going to charge the school, each school, $100 charge, and that's on page 2 of that. The activity registration, last year they charged us $160 per activity, and we got charged for 19 activities. Now, dance, we have jazz, and we have high kick. That is still considered one. We do not pay for clay pigeon shooting, but they still help with the state tournament, so we add that as an activity, but they don't charge us anything for that and so on. So last year at 19 activities at 160 was $3,040, and this year they're charging us $75 per activity, so it's $1,425. So it's less than half of what it was last year. And then they also cut way back. Last year we paid the enrollment of 186 students at $4.60, and you'll see this year they're charging $0. So we're going to pay them about $2,500 less this year than we paid them last year. Next year, there's going to be a reduction as also. It won't be as great as this year. But any questions on that? That's all. Okay. Practice began today for varsity for 7-12 cross country, 7-12 girls tennis, 9-12 football, and some 8th graders are going to be coming to practice with that also, and then maybe a few 8th graders, but 9-12 volleyball. So that all started. Everybody has a different starting time because now we only have one teacher that's a head coach. Everybody else is a member of the community that have different job times and all that. So we used to everybody practiced at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now we have 4 different start times. So it's a little confusing. we hadn't talked about this in July, but I still think we should stay the same. Some of the schools are raising their admission prices. I've never had anybody request to raise them, so I guess I'm just recommending we keep our admission prices the same. We do still let 65 and older senior citizens from the McCray district or McCray grandparents, they do get in free. Let's see, and then I did add below that, just this was copied and pasted right out of last year's, since we had a couple new board members. We did make a few adjustments that we do have a 200 maximum per student, so if a person wants to go out for a fall sport, a winter sport, a spring sport, that would be $240, not to mention 25 for BPE, 25 for mathlete, 25 for musical, 25 for spring play. If they do a lot of activities, we just charge them a straight $200 for the year, and they can be in as many activities as they can. The catch is they have to pay for that upfront to their first activity. It's a bookkeeping nightmare if they're coming in and one kid, the last season, you gotta charge them $25, another kid you're charging them 35, and they're in here trying to go back through the receipt books and figure out who paid what throughout the whole year. And then the other thing is, FFA and BPA are not included in that. And we do have 400 maximum per family, and that is for 7-12. So if there's some elementary fees, that doesn't count. But if a family has 3, 4, 5 kids involved, they can just write a $400 check, and their kids participated in as many activities they want all year. So, and again, that's no change. You guys approved that last year. I just put it back in here as a review. So, are there any questions? Yes.
I just have a question, like, in the past years, we've always had free reduced lunches, so if some family couldn't afford it, how will that work this year now that everybody gets free lunches?
They still need to fill out the free reduced application.
So they would fill it out,
Yep.
and then we could honor that?
Yep.
Yes.
Cost.
And it's
Okay.
still only, I mean, that's a great reduction, because 9-12 pay $80, which is still really cheap. I mean, there's some of these schools for football, they're charging $300-400. But as soon as, if they fill out the free and reduced form, they only pay $25.
Okay, thank you.
So,
To further Jim's explanation, I can say that Kathy Beesman does a really good job of making parent phone calls in order to get those forms taken care of. And I believe it may have been the year after COVID. She spent a significant portion of the first week and a half just making parent phone calls over and over and over again to try and get these forms in. So we do have that taken care of.
that's all I have.
All right. Any more questions for Jim? All right, if not, 6.12, Mitchell Kent.
Alrighty, good evening, everybody. I do not have a whole lot, but I'll run through a lot more dates and everything like that. But I do say we have our new teacher in service tomorrow. I just wanted to thank Leanne and Jennifer for getting that rolling and getting that ready to go. Because I think we do have 8 certified elementary staff who are going to be attending, so we got some new faces to see and learn. So I'm excited about that and get them off on a good note here tomorrow. And then we have the rest of our staff coming in the 28th and the 29th, and then the 30th for open house. And I did just want to throw a reminder in there as well that we will have school pictures on the 30th for open house for everyone during that time. Class rosters were mailed out on Wednesday, so all or most students should have those letters in now and know who their elementary teacher will be for the year. We had Julie Deacon, our reading interventionist. She helped set up a UFly phonics training, and that was with our 1st and 2nd grade classroom teachers last week, and that went very well. So that's a new program we're looking to roll out to kind of beef up our elementary phonics. And then Stepping Stones math, I told you, a lot of dates, a lot of different trainings and stuff. But we have a math training coming up on Wednesday, and that will be for our new curriculum, Stepping Stones. And I'm excited to have that. That's for all of our teachers. And paras are welcome to that as well, being a lot of them have worked directly with the students who are using the curriculum. And we do have an in-person trainer coming for that, which is super nice and helpful. I think they're coming from, I could be wrong, Nevada. I'm trying to think where they're coming from. It's not I don't know if you, it's not close, so they're flying in here from this, so it's not like they're making a trip from Alexandria or something, so we're excited to have them coming for this. Hiring, we've hired several paras at the elementary level. We still need a few more, so hoping to get some of those spots filled up for the beginning of the year. And then we do have our 2 para trainings coming up here. We've got our in-house tomorrow. And Nikki has done a great job of getting that set up. And then the 17th, we have our whole collaborative is doing theirs in APGC. So, and that's, I believe, a conference more, they're calling it. So looking forward to that. And then the final item I had is I just wanted to throw a thank you out to the custodians for everything they've done and are continuing to do to get our building in shape for the start of the school year. That is all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mitch.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, 6.13, Judd Wheatley.
I'm going to cross off all my dates at the top because of Mr. Kent. And so I'm just going to jump into the kind of the meat and potatoes of my report. Short and sweet, discipline matrix. This is, you should have a copy of it. Something that I'm actually really, really happy with. I feel like in a nutshell, if you take all the words in that first bullet point, it's going to provide clarity and transparency. And in mulling over the feedback that was received from staff, from students, from parents, I think the transparency and the clarity is something that was definitely needed. So it covers everything alphabetically from apples to zoology, and then gives a basic outline of the way things should be handled. Of course, I remember back in June, I made a comment about living in a world of gray. That's always part of the deal, but by and large, this is the framework to follow, and I'm very, very excited about this. From there, I did have a point in my notes about cell phones. Made cell phone policy even more restrictive. I know there was some conversations about that. I believe it was maybe May and June. Restrictive in as much as going back to the plan that was used back in 2019. Been told that it was successful at the high school level, and that's solely utilizing the cubbies in the classroom. Cubbies are those little wood things that you stick your phones in. It could be a shoe organizer on the back of the door, so on and so forth. But utilizing those and just saying that it's not negotiable. Your phone is in here unless the teacher needs you to use your phone for a Kahoot or something along those lines. And then the students only have the opportunity to look at their phones during passing time and then during lunch. As a part of that also, what we implemented for middle school, so 6 through 8 last year, was to keep their phones in their lockers. That way it's not a classroom issue. This year, that same group, cycling up to 6th through 9th grade, keeping them in their lockers. Next year, 6th through 10th grade, keeping them in their lockers. So it's a way to throttle back, but slowly for the kids who, that's all they know, really, at the middle school level moving up. So just something we've been tweaking and monkeying around with to see how it goes. Of course, should you decide to go cell phone free, that absolutely will be what's implemented. However, I feel that there's a level of ownership that the students need to take, and I feel very comfortable with the idea of going to the students going, okay, look, we're rolling it back even further. The rest is up to you now. If you want to make things difficult and you want to show us that you can't handle this, then we'll just get rid of them. So you make that decision, and that's empowering to kids, and it gives them the opportunity to feel like they at least have some sort of say in what's happening in the school. So if you would consider that, I would appreciate it. Talk about the attendance plan a little bit, and that really was just to keep all the secretaries on the same page with how we're accepting phone calls from parents to excuse absences, because counties were getting back to us and they're saying, number one, it's not cohesive, and number two, we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page, because we will not accept, if parents are calling the same day, it doesn't matter if they don't call in by 9:30, they're calling in that day, you need to excuse it. So taking that guidance from the county schools, and ultimately when it comes to truancy, they're the ones that have to follow through on that. So making some changes there. And then the last thing I have for you is the LIEP. And so this is the plan that's for limited English proficiency for our ML students. So I'm presenting this on behalf of Sonia Stark, who is our ML coordinator. The plan's already been approved by the school board. She just made some changes that were highlighted in yellow, and really all it comes down to is making sure that everything is up to date for what her responsibilities are. She did give me a couple talking points, so I'm gonna share those with you. Making sure that we're team teaching or pushing kids in whenever possible in the elementary grades. Making sure that the high school kids have access to classes that are equitable for them. And that's a really important thing. If you remember, I received permission from the school board to have an English class instead of requiring British literature for students with limited English proficiency, speaking Shakespeare. That's why I won't lie, I had Spark Notes and I was an English major in college, just to help me understand it because of the words just didn't make sense to me. I couldn't imagine having English as a second language and trying to sort through that. So she actually has created, I gave her my blessing to create a kind of a world of literature class in order to meet the requirements for what we have here at McCray. And that's something that I think is wonderful because she herself is an English teacher and is licensed to do that. So kudos to her for doing that. She asked me to give an example of why some of these changes are important. And we have one student here who is doing okay academically. To get to a 3.0 on the, I believe it's the access score, is allowing that would be the point that you would want the student to push into the mainstream classroom as much as possible and pull back on the support with maybe doing some check-in study time, that kind of stuff. And the student academically has seen some gains, but conversationally still transposes different things. Like, so the example she gave me was like an earring and a necklace. And the student was calling a necklace an earring and wasn't taking the body part with the piece of jewelry. And then when she brought that to the students' attention, they were like, yeah, okay, yep, I understand. So it's getting to the students to the point to where we can mainstream them as much as possible. The improvements to this or changes to this will help in that process. That's what that is. Okay. Do you have any questions, Brian?
Any more questions? No. All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, 6.14, Josh. Jim and Judd and Josh. Great, Josh.
All right, well, thank you. Good evening, board. Some things to update you on. Looking to back to school, keeping our kids safe and keeping our faculty safe is very important. So I've reached out to the Chippewa County Sheriff, Derek Olson, to talk about that type of training for our staff and for our kids. And they will be sending somebody out. Is it the second day?
Yes.
Second day of our back to school training. So we will have that right when the school year starts. And then working with the Chippewa County Sheriff's Department as we go through the year to provide additional, steps for safety and also security within our buildings. One of the goals that I have with safety and security is if we do a drill at the elementary school, that we also do something comparable at the high school during that very same day, for sure within that same week, so that when that conversation goes home to mom and dad around the table, it isn't day after day after day about this drill, but they can all talk about it at one dining room table, and have that conversation, or so it doesn't send fear into somebody as the week goes on. It's like, how come we haven't had this drill? How come we haven't had this conversation? So just keeping that, pre-K-12 in scope as we plan those drills and procedures for the school year. We had a code red just last week on Thursday, in which a button was accidentally pressed to let somebody in to the door or let them out of the office. So we did have a practice with that last week on Thursday.
Do I get to write that one down?
That I don't know if that counts as one of the drills for the year. But on a serious note, there was not a problem. There was not a security breach, but it really gave us in the office and the custodians that were here in the building an opportunity to practice that, because it wasn't taken lightly. There was a call to dispatch, and we had to call Chippewa County and tell them, do not come. All is safe. We made an error. And then also, too, we did have, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, but we did have food service people from 9 different districts in our building at that very same time, and we needed to be able to communicate with them what our next steps were. So that was actually, it was unplanned, but it was good. It really worked out very, very well. Within the last couple of weeks, I've reached out to state representatives. We have 2 House of Representative members from 16A and 16B, Dave Erdahl and Dave Baker, and then we have a senator from District 16, that represents us. And I won't tell you who, but 2 of the 3 have reached back out to me, so I've scheduled meetings with them. They're going to come out to the district. I thought that was best for them to see the building and to see our communities, than to just have a telephone conversation or me going to them. So that was a good conversation. Thank you to all of you on the board that allowed me to attend the Southwest West Central Cooperative. We had a back to school meeting of regional leaders, and so I was able to meet many other first year superintendents, first year assistant principals, athletic directors, business, finance people, and so that was very good networking. At that time too, when we visited in Marshall, they talked about the services that they provide our school, and also the support that is given to us, everything from technology to special education to finance and business. Unforeseen, a couple weeks ago, we had our school nurse resign, and to be honest, I had a big lump in my throat going, oh, what is that going to look like as we count down the days till school starting? Kim did a wonderful job reaching out and getting that posted and the organization of that, and we conducted 3 interviews last week, and we were able to offer a person a position. That person is going to come to us if you approve this individual with close to 30 years of experience as a licensed school nurse. So really just a diamond that we found that was really very unforeseen 10 days ago.
Not
I
even.
heard that noise. But just a great find school district, and it just bring just a lot of insight, a lot of experience, to this position. Collaboration both with Judd and Mitch, talking about goals and expectations for the year. Where are we at with staffing? As Mitchell already mentioned, we do have still some shortages with some of our paraprofessional needs. But other than that, we look very, very good for the start of the school year. We have been discussing curriculum, also professional development, not only for the back to school time, which many schools focus on, but also what is it going to look like in October? What is it going to look like in December? What is it going to look like even next late winter, early spring, when people are looking to the end of the calendar and where professional development is very difficult, but still focus on making sure we provide that for our staff. And then also to communication. It's so important to have that communication from school to home to the child and then back to school, that complete triangle, of all those different elements. And we just talked about what that would look like. Back to school, utilizing not only mailing and actual envelopes that go to people's homes, but also too using the website and just making sure that we can save some postage if there are some that are able to access the information they need online. So that's in something that those of you that are watching from outside, check out the web page and see some of the great things that Jesse has put on there. Everything from back to school letters to who your teacher may be, and you can see what their contact is. You can also order school apparel. You can also fill out insurance forms. So there's a lot of things there that we hope to make efficient for our moms and dads and families. Thank you also, school board, for allowing me to attend the MASA Great Start cohort. It was in Brooklyn Park a week or so ago. And that again just gave a great kickoff and excitement to the school year for school leaders from across the state. Dennis Laumeier, he's the Benson superintendent. He has been assigned to me from Southwest West Central as my mentor for the year, and we've had some great conversations as I've driven around the district or as I've sat in the office or even have been driving home in the evening. Dennis helped me today to look at policy, was it 523?
The asbestos one?
Yeah, no, not the asbestos one, the one that had all the red line checked off. It's like, I don't know how this stands alone. But Dennis was very kind in giving some advice to me for that. We also have been gathering some information. Parents looked at the change in the end of our day and getting out a little earlier than we have, and where are my school age children going to go for that additional time, because I can't just swap out my work schedule. I can't just leave a half hour early, and what does that look like? And so it was requested that we gather some data. So we did send out a parent survey, and I can share that a little bit with you. If you'd like more information, I can certainly share that too. We had 105 responses, and with those 105 responses, we had close to 50% that said yes, they would be interested in an after-school program, and this would be PM, so after the school day is over. Maybe was about 30%, and 22% of the people that we asked said no, they were not interested in that. We asked about the times of how long or how late, and it was really all over the board. Everything from 7% that we would stay open until 4, 27% till 4:30, 30% till 5, 30% till 5:30, and just again about 6 or 7% that said we should stay open till 6. So most people wanted it between the 4:30 and the 5:30 time period if we were able to do that. We asked them what this should look like, and so this would just be a snapshot. The majority of the people that responded wanted to see playtime, help with homework, organized activities, and also snacks was very high too. Close to 70% of the people that responded said snacks should be part of this after-school program. Looking at what grade these children would be in, pre-K had the largest number of people that responded. And that was 28 total people, which is 34%. The next highest was second grade, followed by kindergarten, and then first, third, fourth kind of was a tie for in the fourth place or so, and fifth was the least needy. Fifth grade parents had the least need. In terms of what people would be willing to pay, the majority of the people, the majority of the people said they'd be willing to pay $5, okay, for that after-school care per day. 28% said less than 5%. So if you add those all together, close to 70% said they spend $5 or less for after-school care. 21% though said they would spend 10, and there were probably, there's not a percentage connected to this, but about 7%, 6 or 7% said they would spend $15 or more per day. So we've gathered some good information, and now working with Mitch and Judd on next steps on what that would look like for that after-school possible care. But we got some good information. Fall sports and activities, as Jim shared, started today. There's been great excitement in the building. Since I came as part of the team on July 1st, there is the office staff, there's custodial staff, sometimes there's kitchen people, and sometimes there's some sales people that come through, but other than that, it's fairly quiet. Today there was actually voices in the gymnasium and people coming through the hallways, and it was quite exciting. As Jim said, our attendance numbers are up. We had people signing up for all the sports this afternoon yet. So it's exciting to see the ambition and just the desire to be part of something. Last week on Thursday, August 10th, we hosted food service directors from 9 area schools for training. Julie in the kitchen did a wonderful job of organizing that. There were vendors here for people from other schools to see. They had safety training. They also shared some menu items and what was popular. And across the 9 schools, mashed potatoes, chicken nuggets, gravy on top with corn is a very popular thing. It has different names, but it's very popular. But just great collaboration with those teams that were assembled last Thursday. Any questions you folks might have?
I don't. Do you have a particular timeline for the after-school program if it would be started?
I don't have a true timeline of when it would be, but if we decided to go forward with it, I don't think we could feasibly have it all up and running by the very first day, just with staffing and some of the
Oh,
legal
for sure.
pieces.
Yeah, I was even thinking maybe
Yeah.
not till the second semester even. Yeah.
But there's not been a final date decided.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, 6.2 is part of the committee report, and it's the POC, which is the Project Oversight Committee for the Athletic Complex, of which Carmel and myself have been on as part of being on the POC for the rest of the building. And I asked John if he'd be willing to maybe take my place on that, and he said he would. Is there anybody else who'd like to do that? Because we could pitch in. You just needed 2 people, Kim?
I think so.
Who?
Wants to.
You think so? We should put Scott.
Got it.
Yeah, it's not been on.
Yeah, and when you're absent, it's a character.
Yeah, right. I can stay on it too, but if you are willing to do it and John is, that's fine with me, so.
Okay, Carmel and John.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Carmel. Okay, 7.0 is business items. we need a motion on this to approve this resolution to call for abatement hearing, and that is related to the activities complex, correct? Is that right? That's related to that activities
Yeah.
complex, right?
Julie, can we go back to the, discussion items, please?
No, I always forget that.
It's okay, no
6.3.
worries. No
Yeah,
worries.
sure, go ahead.
Well, I just had a question. I was wondering if, you've done any figuring about the new sick and safe leave. I believe I just met with some attorneys today about that comes into effect as of the first of the year. And what sort of financial impact is that going to have on our district and also the collective bargaining unit?
Yeah, there's, sorry.
No, go please.
I just saw that there's MSBA is gonna have a workshop on that, or an online meeting that I need to sign up for, so I can figure that out a little bit. We've had so many things that were effective before January 1st that we've been focusing on, but yeah, I'll be looking at that. I think Josh will too.
Substantially some financial hits for the district, and then also to keep in, I think in the forefront is that with the new FMLA, that's gonna be two financial things. So I just want to make sure that as we move forward with the athletic complex, that we are keeping this in mind, because it is gonna be financially impacting to the district,
Absolutely.
so.
Kim has done a great job of keeping me kind of in tune with those different changes within the legislature. Also, too, knowing, and Kim and I have had conversation too, is that not only will it have impact on us, but it'll have impact on other districts too, and just being a step ahead of even these meetings prior to January 1st to seek out what other similar sized districts and similar regions, what they're doing. And like you said, Deb, with negotiations too, that's something to be very, fiscally responsible with. But I think that's very important to bring to the attention of the board and the community that's watching too.
I think it's important. I do appreciate, that some of this has gone into place, just because there's been some employees that don't get the benefits that they could need when they're gonna be gone. But I also feel that some of the employers who have been doing a really good job of promoting personal time off and whatnot, it's gonna be quite financially, like, bam, hitting in the pocketbook and whatnot. So this might be a good opportunity when we meet with our elected officials to make sure that they understand the financial impact that it could have on our district. I plan to do that.
Okay, anything else under 6.3 discussion items? I do have a question. MSBA's, as part of our, the dollars we paid for hiring you, we got part of that, workshop that we can sign up for. So have they given us some dates that we need to do that, or?
They have not given us any dates,
Okay.
but they have, I believe it's a 2-hour
Okay.
workshop.
Okay.
It can be done virtual. So at this point, I don't think we have to travel anywhere. I don't even know if we have to even all be in the same room. So I think it's very flexible. And I
Okay.
think Amy Jordan is our
Yes.
contact. So I will work with her and I'll reach out to you, Julie, and we'll organize that for.
Okay.
But I do think, it's something we've already paid for.
Right,
And so I think it's good just to see what their next steps are, and to see also, if you were satisfied, whether it was with me or the whole process, I think it just makes us, it just educates us just that much more on, superintendent and school board relationships. So
yeah,
I think
I
it's
think
good.
that's what it was for. So anyway, okay, well, maybe it can be done, maybe, like you said, maybe it can be done individually, we don't have to be all together to do it. So-
And I'll find out.
Yeah, okay,
Sure.
sounds good, all right, thanks. Okay, the 7.0 business items, so we need again a motion to approve this resolution to call for that abatement hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Right, Mark,
I'll second.
John, okay, any discussion on that? And that's going to be used for parking lot repairs and listed. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments about that?
What are all the property ID numbers? What do they all attach to?
I'm not sure.
I'm also not sure.
It seemed like a lot, is what I was thinking.
Well, there was a ton of parcels when we had the other two buildings.
But here,
It should not be that.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Unless they've still included all those old properties under that.
Because they're still part of the school district, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, or maybe, well, it was part of what was taxed at, tax base at one time.
With just being uncertain what those property ID numbers are, I will follow up with all of you what that means so that we can make a clear decision. But I too believe that it's just each parcel, whether it was an old playground, a ball field somewhere, a front parking lot of one building, I'm sure everything has to have a connection and a code to it.
I think there were 5 in Maynard alone.
Oh, there must have been a dozen in Raymond. It was just a ton of them over there.
So would this need to be revised or adjusted if those parcels are no longer the property of the school district?
No, they would have taken that into consideration. Sure. You want me to
Who supplied
try?
these, who supplied these?
Our lawyer.
Oh, okay, all right.
In that first paragraph, it has it payable through 2024, so my assumption is that it's existing property.
So has the paperwork maybe not been all the way fully processed, filed, like with the sale of the land and
But
stuff?
they're the ones who also did those purchase agreements, so they would be aware of that. This is taxable property, so the school district property isn't taxable anyway.
Oh, this could just be the parcel numbers within the district that aren't related to the building itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But to go back to Deb's initial question, I think Deb, you were asking just what are these properties? Like,
Yeah.
I trust that that's accurate, that those numbers apply to something, but what is 02006111? What is that? So I trust that they're accurate, but I can find out what they're attached
Thank
to.
you. Thank you.
this hearing would be before our next meeting, right? Like,
Yeah, it's 6
on
o'clock
that night.
on September 11th.
Right.
Have the hearing and then go right into the board meeting.
Well, I guess I would just like to proceed as this information being accurate and correct, and
Yeah.
if it's not, we'll have to get that changed. Okay, so, there's any other discussion about that? If not, Mark, you're gonna have to read this resolution.
So the whole,
Reading it his paper when we,
I've got it
oh, he's got it there,
Yeah.
okay.
here. Okay, so resolution providing for a public hearing to consider granting a proposed property tax abatement. Be it resolved by the school board, the Board of Independent School District Number 2180, McRae Public Schools, Chippewa, Candy, Ojai, and Renville Counties, Minnesota, the district as follows. The school board hereby finds and determines that a public hearing shall be held pursuant to Minnesota statute section 469.1813 subdivision 5 to consider granting an abatement of certain property taxes levied against net tax capacity. The proposed property tax abatement imposed by the district for taxes payable in 2024 through 2033 and the following properties within the district boundaries identified by property identifier numbers. Property ID numbers, do I think I need to look
Yeah,
those?
No.
No.
Okay. Been here a long time. The purpose of granting the proposed property tax abatement is to provide funds to finance the construction of and improvements to parking lots at various sites in the district. The total estimated cost of the proposed property tax abatement by the school district is $1,605,319 over 10 years, an amount estimated to be sufficient to pay the principal and interest charges on approximately $1,225,000 of bonds issued to finance parking lot construction, reconstruction, and improvements district-wide and related financing costs. Number 3, The public hearing to consider the granting of the proposed tax abatement shall be held at 6:00 PM on September 11th, 2023 in the boardroom at the McRae Public Schools, 711 Wolverine Drive, Clara City, Minnesota 56222. The clerk is authorized and directed to cause notice of the hearing to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the district at least one time, more than 10 days but less than 30 days before the date of the hearing. The newspaper must be one of general interest and readership in the community and not one of limited subject matter. The newspaper must be published at least once per week. The notice of public hearing shall be substantially the form of the notice attached hereto as Exhibit A. Number 4, all who wish to be heard as to the proposed property tax abatement will be given an opportunity to express their views at the time of the public hearing or may file written comments with the superintendent prior to the public hearing. Number 5, all actions taken by the district to cause publication of the attached notice of public hearing prior to the date of this resolution are hereby ratified, confirmed, and approved. And then it's Exhibit A.
You don't have to read
I
that.
think I just repeated what you said. All right, this would be a roll call vote on these. So, those in, we'll just go around the table. John? Yeah. Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Carmel?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well, so that resolution is passed and adopted. Okay. All right, 7.2, I need a motion to approve the McRae Employee Handbook. And I'll make that motion. Need a second?
Second.
Carmel, any questions?
I had a couple about cell phone, thank you for explaining that. Another one on, I don't know what page it's on, because it's not numbered when I printed it
Oh,
out.
is that staff handbook at the moment?
Staff, it's staff,
Yeah.
staff.
But you're looking at me.
No, I know, I'm trying to recall the part about cell phones within the staff.
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay,
Yeah, about in the classrooms.
Okay. Oh, okay. anything that's decided will be updated accordingly. I mean, so if anything's
Yep.
changed tonight, then of course.
I think the one that I just was a little bit drawn to, sometimes you come into classrooms and there's paper and crap laying all over the floor. And it's like assistance to the custodians. It says students should be encouraged to keep the floors clean. I would say at my house, if it's you make a mess, to clean it up. And so a student should be expected versus should be encouraged. If they're throwing papers on the floor, or wrappers or something, make sure the teachers ask them to pick them up afterwards. It would be a good role modeling thing.
Anybody have anything else, or are you still looking, Deb?
Yeah, the other one was, I
Okay.
just wondered, the chemical use and abuse, drug and alcohol-free workplace.
Mhm.
If there's anything that we need to put in there because of the new, legalizing marijuana. I know we've had to do that at where I work. But also there's nothing in there that talks about, it talks about, a drug-free workplace, but it doesn't talk about if somebody would come in under the influence. And so I just wondered if that might be a little something that we could add.
Yes, the words, I like the wordsmith things, but that will be beyond my scope a little bit, so I'll have to find something.
And Deb, you're referring to an employee.
Yes.
Yes,
Not just-
yes, the employee.
Thank you.
That was it.
All right, anybody else have anything else about the staff handbook? No, all right. Those in favor of approving the McRae Employee Handbook, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right. Carries. Okay, 7.3, need a motion to approve McRae Student Handbook. I'll make that motion. Need a second.
I'll second.
John, okay. Anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions that I had emailed about earlier. The first part was the breakfast and lunch section needed some updating with the new free lunches. And then I also had a lot of feedback on the dress code. And I really liked the diagram that was in the MSBA model where it kind of showed what areas of the body needed to be covered. I kind of liked that. And I felt like what we had written for our dress code was a little bit vague, you know, kind of I just thought if there's a clear cut diagram of what's expected, that can be a, you know, reference for what we're talking about when there's somebody brings it up or brings somebody to the office for dress code violation.
Yeah, it's almost like something that should be posted, like a poster with that image on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Not really, not really
Clear.
not really disputable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think that was choice C or something in that.
Yes.
This one.
Yeah, you could picture them, so. yeah, thought that
I
was-
couldn't agree with you more, Carmel. I mean, when it talked about community standards, to me, that is totally subjective.
Yes.
And this, I know at the end of the year, there was a lot of concerns brought forth with tummies showing and a little bit maybe too revealing in the front, but I like this diagram. That would help, I think, the administration hold individuals accountable for that also.
Yeah, I would add too that I like the cell phone changes. I think we've heard that from the parents here several times too, that they're not really adding anything academically. It's just a distraction and maybe the source of some bullying, so I like the way that that's trending.
I also was looking at the headlights from, because when we had listened to another parent who had expressed concerns about that. I didn't see a lot of detail in that, whatnot, and I think what the parent who spoke here was talking about was that other children or other parents in that classroom should be notified that this classroom has had an issue come up and whatnot, and I didn't see that in there, and I think that's what they were asking for.
Mitch and I, Mr. Kent and I met with a parent just today. We were kind of struggling to get to get on the same calendar to be able to meet, but we had a very good conversation today with a concerned parent. Just brought up some just wonderful, input for us in a very respectful manner, and just, really the bottom line for this person, I believe, and what my takeaway is that safety for kids, safety for those kids, but then also too, what are we doing prior to educate? What kind of preventative measures are we doing? Not only written communication, but also just in our classrooms. And then what happens when there is a case or two cases? And, do we have communication, built in with our local daycares? So it's back and forth that we are sharing with them and they are sharing with us. Do we have those kinds of things in place? And the way we left that meeting today, very respectful, and just that we will meet with that new school nurse when they come on board, just to talk about what best past practices have they dealt with, and we want to improve. That's the bottom line. It starts with preventative measures, it starts with education and communication.
So I think just from hearing from the one parent and other parents that also spoke with me afterwards after they listened to the board meeting, that they really do want notification. And I think that's something, even if a nurse can come in and what they use for past practice, but it's maybe not what our parents and our want. And I also think to be able to treat individuals with respect and dignity, because head lice is head lice. It's not selective. You just get it or you don't. But usually in a small community, everybody knows anyway, but just to make sure that we do that.
So one question I have is if we approve like the student handbook, but then we, decide to make a change on the lice policy or, clarify the dress code because it's, policy 504, if we approve that had like those three options like I had asked about. If things get changed, like can we change the student handbook then at any time throughout the year?
I'll go in, take the requested and approved changes and work on that over the next 2 weeks so that it's ready for the students. Get it uploaded to the website. Actually, I'll give it to Jesse so that it's uploaded to the website. And then I actually was, Mrs. Mock and I have talk about co-writing a kind of an update letter and have that with the back to school information. Waiting on that to find out what happened today. Timeline's not the best, but get that updated so then we can say, hey, we added a new document. Parents, make sure you check this out so that way it's not blindside.
And we could do that anytime during the year,
Yeah.
anytime we change
Anytime.
anything, right? So,
I do like your proactive approach of getting it out early so that hopefully there's not any ruffled feathers at the beginning of the school year. But it would be nice if.
There'll be plenty of feathers.
But it would be nice if this diagram, I mean, if we got that out right away and whatnot, then people will know what the expectation is. Or do we have to amend the motion? Are we already just with,
Suppose we have to amend it with the changes
that we would like to suggest?
And I think also too that like, I believe that there's a place, so if that image were to be put in there, there needs to be some wording also that talks about when that takes place. You know, so that it doesn't have impact on what our cross-country or our track uniforms might look like. Or what
Sure.
we're wearing for volleyball, or what we're wearing at prom.
right, right.
You know, we have to make sure that if it's, so policies are things that are black and white, you have to be able to, you know, and so we have to make sure we're doing this with due diligence, you know, that if we don't set up a child to fail because of the dress they select for prom or because of the outfit they wear for cross country.
I did have one other question on the cell phone, and like in one part it says they got to put them in the cubbies, but then it also says, or students use the no sight, no sound policy.
That was part of what I fixed today. I went through
Oh,
and I
yeah,
made probably 5 or 6 different changes.
Okay,
That was definitely one of those.
yeah,
So it was deleted.
Correct.
so it's just cubbies.
Yep.
and
Yep.
In between classes.
Yep.
And I would like to interject too to the board that we may have students that are diabetic
Yeah.
that do carry their cell phone, and that's where some of that language comes from too, is that it can't be in a cubby, it needs to be on them, and so the no sight, no sound is not a distraction. So I mean, that's common sense, but when people write policy, it's,
Black and white of it.
we don't want to put that student also in a bind.
The ability to look at cell phones through the adult eyes, even though you don't want to as a teenager, is something that is important for us to teach them. You know, I've told students over and over again, be proactive about what you're doing. If grandma's in the hospital and you are going to be getting a text from mom or dad or whomever, let your teacher know. Let me know at a minimum so that I can shoot out an email and say, hey, heads up, so-and-so's going to have their phone on them. Don't clamp down on them. They've got some personal stuff going on. That's important for kids to learn. So once we get through the frustration and the anger of us sucks, this is stupid, I don't like this, you guys are just trying to hurt us, to continue to have those conversations to say, look, here's the right way to go about doing it. And that's just all part of it, regardless of whatever policy we choose to go with and whatever the handbook says.
So if I follow you correctly, in 3 years, you're planning to have all students in K through 12 leaving their phones in their locker all day. That's the desire.
If we stay true to it, then that's the plan. I mean, that would be a great way to do it. If kids can show that they're going to be responsible with their phones, then let's pull back. We got to get to that point too.
I think
So-
it's a big distraction for a lot of the.
That was one
Yeah.
thing I noticed last year when we did our board walkthrough. When we got to the high school side of things, there were a lot of kids on phones during class, and I can't imagine being a teacher having a kid looking at their phone.
I will say that from year to year, now in my 3rd year here at the high school, things have been scaled tighter. And part of it is making sure that we have consistent follow through around the entire building and committing to or following through on what is committed as a plan. So use them in your classroom if you need to. Great, there's no problem with that. There's a time and a place to use them. However, don't just say, okay, today's fine. Yeah, today's fine, but not today because I'm mad. You know, so consistency is always key.
Yep.
Parenting 101.
Okay, excuse me, any more comments about the handbook? So if we're approving it today, we're approving it with possible future changes as we pointed out, as we decided we need to do. Okay, in that case, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Okay. 7.4 is a motion to approve the McCray literacy plan. Is a motion on that?
So moved.
Deb, okay, a second.
Second.
Cornell? All right, any discussion about that? And that is what you talked about, but that's not, no?
No,
Oh,
like,
was it wrong?
no, literacy. plan is
Literacy
elementary.
plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what you were talking about. All right, any questions or conversation about that? If not, we'll vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay. Okay, we need 7.5. Here's all those policies. I think what we'll do is make the motion, first and second motions here, and then we can go through them one by one and have some discussion, and then we'll approve them all at the end. If not, we approve them all, or that'll work out, so we don't have to do them individually. So, can I get a motion to approve the first and final reading of the following policies, 504 through 806? John, okay, second?
I'll second.
All right, the first one there is 504, which is the student dress and appearance, which we just discussed a little bit. You have some more notes there about that, Josh?
Just the fact that school boards and school districts are given some options. You know, with that, you don't have to adopt what the model policy is, but at least they have very good language and it's legal for the school district to follow. So that just, it gives some opportunities, and it's also substantially revised, you know, to give some school districts some autonomy as well.
Okay.
So when these are posted on the website, will all of the chitter chatter be taken out of there?
Mhm.
And it'll just be the policy itself then? Okay, so we're not approving the anecdotal notes or whatever?
No.
Right,
Okay,
right. And we kind of, I'm hearing that we're all liking the image,
yes.
that shows,
Yeah.
number C or whatever that shows the image there. All right, anything else on the dress and appearance section? If not, policy 507 is a corporal punishment and prone restraint.
Yeah, this just adds prohibitions to certain things that adults can do in home restraint for the safety of kids, so they will not hurt, you know, in situations where they're helping.
All right, anybody have any questions on that? 524 or 523 is policies incorporated by reference.
Yeah, that's a long phrase.
Yes.
I'll tell you, what it means is that within a school district, there are some policies that apply to students and to staff, or employees and to students, and instead of being redundant in them, they just simply listed them all together. And so over time, some of them are crossed out because they may only apply to employees, or they may only apply to staff members, or excuse me, to students. So this just means it's so that they're not in there listed twice.
Okay, so they're just cleaning them up.
They're just cleaning them up. So a tobacco policy, that applies to students and staff.
Okay. Okay, 520, policy 524 is the internet acceptable use and safety and pledge.
This again gives very good language to school districts on what they can do for cell phone provisions, and it stems from safety. We know that if you have, yes, a cell phone is a distraction. We already talked about that and agreed to that, but also through the fact that your cell phone can take a picture, your cell phone can take a video, your cell phone then can post it to social media. It becomes a distraction to the learning environment. So this gives, it gives a safety net to schools, and it just gives good language. And then within that, there's alternatives. There's alternative language that can be chosen.
But we have to pick
We have to pick one of the three.
number 3,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, we have to do number 3 because we receive the federal money,
Oh, okay,
so we don't
Have a
really have a
choice.
choice on that one.
Okay.
It has to be 3.
okay. All right. On policy 532 is the use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove students with IEPs from school grounds.
Yeah, more and more schools across the state of Minnesota and across the nation have school resource officers, and this just gives reasonable force provisions to those people. Many of those people that are school resource officers, or those that are even, sheriff's deputies and stuff like that, they haven't gone through the very same training that a teacher has or a paraprofessional has, but yet they might be asked to work with a student in a school setting, and it gives protection to both them and also the student.
Okay, policy 602 is the organization of the school calendar and school day.
A number of years ago, the legislature gave each school district 5 e-learning days. For some districts, that was a great thing. For others, and especially some of our younger learners, it's a tough day. It's a tough day for the kids, and it's a tough day for their moms and dads at home. And so there are some districts that are going away completely from e-learning days at all, and there are some that are taking the 5 and running with it. And it's already been agreed upon by this board that we would have kind of a combination or a hybrid of that. Is that there would be a combination of e-learning days followed by days that would be made up. And then if we had to go back to e-learning days too, but not doing all 5 of them in a row, which is, help me with the history, that's what we did this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is approved.
And
This
then,
coming year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used all 5 last year.
well, but what I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
they were all in a row. We used all 5 of them in
Yeah.
a row without doing a makeup first or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Yeah.
And then also part of the e-learning provisions. McCray was very forward-thinking last year and the year before to provide opportunities for support staff or non-teaching staff to still make up hours, so they didn't lose all their wages. Other districts, they gave those folks opportunities maybe to make up those hours, but it maybe wasn't until June. That's very difficult to do quality professional development or learning in the first week of June when all the kids have already left. And so this is a protection that McCray was already doing to allow faculty members to make up some of those hours so they didn't go backwards with wages because they don't decide the snow day. They can't help that. So we were already doing that, which is a hats off to you folks for doing that.
This is one of the crazy things of that sick and safe leave. Snow days are acceptable under that.
Is that right? Okay.
No written documentation from a physician if you're gonna be out young, you just, very, very open as to be to consider family members also, so.
Keep our eyes open, but
Yeah.
policy 602, we've already made those provisions.
Before we advance, may I ask a clarification question, please? Under 751, policy 504, we covered clothing. Hats, we allowed hats. The students were really good about that, we didn't have problems. We had more issues with kids wearing hoods, and that just was a bit of an appearance type of component. But when it came to the safety, I told the students first day of school last year, this is being able to see your face is what's important. So no gigantic hats, no masks. If you want to wear a ball cap, go for it. So I just want to clarify because I don't want to have all of a sudden Superintendent Austin has to email you guys and say, no, we forgot about hats. So is it just clothing that we're worried about at this point? And if we need to adjust for hats, we can, or need some guidance?
Well, we had hats okay last year.
I haven't heard anything about hats from anyone.
And the hood thing too, I think it's important that you can see your face, but I think it states that in it.
Yeah, there was some provisions in there about being able to see ears too, as far as
Yeah.
say wearing headphones,
Yeah,
that you had to be able to see.
yeah.
I don't know if that was the exact policy.
And it also accommodated for religious groups too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to be identified and to be able to have a conversation and make eye contact with somebody is very important, and also to see if they're actually hearing and they don't just have earbuds in. I think I don't think we should put into a policy anything about a hood covering the ear, because I think also too you have boys and girls that have longer hair that covers their ears too, and that becomes okay. What's the difference then? Does that mean that I have to put my hair behind my ears? It's just that isn't that.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Right.
So we don't want to get in the weeds with that.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Do you have any staff that requests the kids to take their hats off when they come in for a test day or?
I believe we do. They were given the latitude to make that adjustment in their classroom as they see fit.
Okay.
That's one of those things that,
Exactly.
by and large, as a community, it was go ahead and wear your hats. However, this is the teacher's home,
Yeah.
and you need to respect what their requests are for it. I had a classmate in high school who got busted for having some stuff on a cap, so I know what you're talking about.
Well, and even we can have your eyes too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right. Okay. We are on to 709, student transportation safety and form.
Yeah, for decades, bus safety has been taught in our school, but who's responsible for making sure that it gets taught? And so that's what this policy is for. So in the elementary level, Mr. Kent is going to be his charge to make sure that that education is being done in the classroom with the classroom teacher. Also, Palmer Bus Company will be coming out to talk about bus safety and parking lot etiquette. And then Mr. Kent will also be, it'll be his responsibility for any new students that come into the district, that they get that same training, so that they are caught up with the bus safety.
I'm wondering what we're gonna do with the outlying communities. There's a bus stop over by my neighborhood. And I don't think it's a real safe bus stop. It's, I can't remember what street it is. I tell you, it's the one that goes right in front of Alcava. But there's all the cars that park alongside there. And then if the weather's bad, the kids run out in between the cars as other cars are going by and going through before the bus comes. So if there's maybe even some education that could be done on site with some of those kids, this is the tree that you stand by, or something like that. I don't know, just a couple mornings they see the bus coming and I'm just going through the stop sign as I stopped and I'm taking off now. Whoop, somebody runs out from behind the car. So maybe that's something to take a look at also.
it's kind of a busy street.
It is.
Yeah, or maybe you move it on the corner or something to make it safer, whatever.
Yeah,
There's other options.
they're on the corner.
Okay,
Usually
yeah.
across from Deb Aaron's house there, but that's usually where they stand and, yeah. Right.
I had a question on that. Do the matrix you had of all the rules, disciplinary things, does that apply to buses? Are you,
So there's a provision within discipline that accounts for bus stops and buses. We could even make a case saying, well, you're on a bus, technically it's not a free property. Once you're actively engaged in doing school, I would apply this.
so that would, if somebody offends on the bus, counts towards one of those?
If I remember correctly, I had some issues, we had a bus stop that had some bullying issues probably 4 or 5 years ago, so I'm coming into my 7th year now. And elementary kids doing stuff, and yeah, it's absence. One of those things that, hey, parent contact, hey, let's get this taken care of. Conversations with the kids, the appropriate way to act. Short answer, yes.
All right. Well, and I feel like between parents, John, and us, it's good communication. We're able to work through things and make sure everything's handled in a appropriate way.
Also, too, riding a school bus is a privilege.
Right.
It's not a right, and so that there are students that may lose that privilege.
Well, it seems like, in your setup, you have, 4 offenses listed. Are you, if these things are happening on a bus, are you letting them go 4 times? Or is Palmer,
So
I guess
so the
lines there?
I'm smiling because the communication between John and myself or Mr. Kent, we have to initially find out what's happening. Has it been reported on the bus? There's a couple different layers to it, depending on the level or the magnitude of it. I've done everything up to I think I've done a month of not riding the bus, and it's a little tongue in cheek, but when you inconvenience a parent for a month, say you now need to drive your child to school because they can't control themselves on the bus, things change really quick. And so it's effective. It's a very effective method of discipline when it happens on the bus. But yeah, it's scaled. I mean, it could be a week. It could be, if it's something minor, but hey, I want to get your attention. I'll do it for 2 days to end the week. Happens again, it's going to be 2 weeks.
It is, and I think Palmer does a nice job of, there's certain things it's their buses, but there's certain times when something happens and he says, I'm doing this.
Yep.
And it's like, sounds good. And there's other times where he'll say, if we say we're doing 2 days or 3 days, and he'll be like, fine with me. It's, so like I said, it just works. We work well together and just kind of figuring out what's best.
And at all levels, for the kids to hear me say, this is Mr. DeHoo. He's the one who runs the bus company. He's going to tell you what ends up happening and why it's important for your safety, and then for him to go through that to have that extra layer, well, this is the big dog that's in control of the buses. That's powerful for students. And we've seen significant changes with him coming in and talking to kids.
So yeah, John does come in and
Yeah.
time to time for like the
No
elementary,
problem.
to see the elementary kids sitting there and be like, they're smiling at me. I'm like, I'm not here to talk to you, and he is. So you look at him, I'm just gonna sit back here and listen.
Also too, as we talk about bus, safety, Palmer Bus has just a great group of experienced drivers. They also have GPSs on their bus, and they also have cameras on their bus. And so it's very helpful as we're trying to narrow down, what has taken place, what could be done better, as we talked about in this board meeting. They do a wonderful job.
So are there cameras, both audio and video?
I can't speak, there's video in each, but most of them are. So you can hear that too. I take that back, depending on what part of the bus, if you're in the very middle of the bus, then they don't have cameras in every seat.
Okay, then we'll move on. Policy 806 is the crisis management.
And with that, it says in short is you have to have a crisis management team within your district. And in McRae, it would include myself and administration, also business director, activities director, school counselor, school social worker. And then it also adds active shooter drill requirements, which is the fact that you have to educate, you have to be prepared for it. You have to be prepared for any negative thing that may happen at school. And then what is your plan after that? Where are you going? What does your pickup look like? What are you dealing with a natural disaster? What are you dealing with?
Does this policy also cover the legislation of notifying parents? Do we know that?
I don't know.
I'm sorry,
I know I'm trying to catch me.
So just as a side note to this, Mrs. Mock and I are going to be setting, and we'll correlate it with the elementary, of course, but we have to have our first lockdown and evacuation within the first 2 weeks of school. And so communicating that out to parents, I don't want to do an instant alert, but what I want to do is probably within that parent letter, set the dates of when the drills are expected to happen, so that way they're notified. We do not run any live fire type of drills to where somebody's walking around with 2x4s and clapping them together as a simulation. At most, it would be myself and Mr. Kent walking around, and then if we notify teachers of who's located where, just so that parents have that. That's part of the legislation. They need that information per the legislation. And should there be a live fire type of drill, then parents would have the right to opt out. But that's something.
So then there's some sort of crisis management plan or something that has to be written and submitted and whatever, so. All right,
And that's for, and you gotta dig kind of deep into that policy, but if you get to, I think now it's under Roman numeral 5, but it's everything from, I'm not gonna read all of them, but it's everything from fire to assault, to intruder, to bomb threat, to lockdown, to media procedures, there's a lot.
so we're covered on all of them. Good. Okay, that's the end of the list of those policies. So, does anybody have any other questions? If not, we'll take a vote here to approve the first and final reading for those policies. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, that carries. Okay. 7.6, I need a motion to approve the updated language instruction educational program. And that's the one I was thinking of earlier.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Carmel. Second. I'll second that. Okay, any questions or discussions on that? All right. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right, there's a list of our, we got the abatement hearing before the September meeting, and then meetings are listed for October, November, and December. All right, I need a motion.
I'll second.
All right, those in favor